Well, hello everyone. This is Graham from therecordingrevolution.com with, yeah, you guessed it, 5 minutes to a better mix. It's kind of what the intro video said, but we are looking at 31 mixing tips in 31 days. We're almost at the end. Here are a couple of final little things I try to do as I'm wrapping up a mix, and these are usually kind of painful because they involve listening to other people's mixes, and you've worked so hard on zeroing in on your mix in your little bubble that when you bring in external tracks, you kind of go, oh, wow, right. Because you're not just hearing mix technique, you're also hearing recording preferences and different tones and different vibes. There's so many different ways your mix could sound. So it's definitely opening yourself up to some self-inflicted criticism. But you got to do this. You got to do this to help your mix sound the best it can. It's only to help you. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. It's to pull in another reference of a track. Early on in this series, I talked about stealing from pro mixes. So I try to listen to some pro mixes early on in the mixing phase and pull some specific ideas I want to rip from that to implement on my mix. Well, I also bring in a mix at the end to check two things in particular. I'm checking the top end and the bottom end of my mix, kind of the EQ balance. I've made my mixing decisions, but how is the overall top end and bottom end? Is it kind of close? Is it kind of in the ballpark of my counterparts or other pro mixes that I like and respect and know sound good on different systems? And here's a quick way to do it. Bring in an MP3 or WAV of a track you really like or you think is relatively similar to the track you're mixing. And in my case, I brought in a track here on its own audio track, and it's routed to my speakers, 1 and 2. It is bypassing my mix bus. I have my mix bus routed in a way that anything else like this track is not going to go through my mix bus plugin. So you route your DAW the way you need to make sure that what you do is basically are listening to this track totally done just through your speakers and converters versus your mix through all your plugins through your speakers and converters. This is a master track, so it's going to be louder than my mix, so I have pulled the volume down to -9 to kind of match it a little bit. And what I'm going to do is basically take a listen to this mix by itself and then listen to my mix.
When the breezes of death lead you, I've got Jesus' blood in my veins, so I feel alive with the life that's not mine.
And here's my mix.
That which is lost from your end, Jesus, I bow lower now.
Right, so I'm listening for the top end and bottom end.
When the breezes of death lead you.
So immediately I hear on this other mix, the reference, that it's got more top end clarity. So on my master fader, my mix bus, I have a great plugin here called Ozone. I got a couple of things going on here, some reverb, some other stuff you could look at. It's got a limiter. I don't have that really engaged yet, but I've already got an EQ curve I've drawn up for the sake of time being short in these videos, where I've done a little bit of rolling off and a little bit of a bump in the low end, specifically around whatever that is, 45, 50, 60 hertz. And then also a bit of a boost, kind of a shelf here in the 5K on up range. Really, it's starting in around 2K. Nothing more than just, 1.7 dB of a boost to sort of open up the top end. And so what I've got is this EQ curve bypassed, and you can hear my mix when I bring it back in. A little bit of a bass boost, not much, just a tad bit more, a little more focused bass because I'm rolling off the ultra, ultra low. And then a little bit more top end come in. Let's take a listen before and after. Compare that to this guy now.
When the breezes of death lead you, that which is lost.
Right? It doesn't sound like the other mix, so don't be disappointed, but it is a little more in that clarity range, is matching the other mix a bit more. And I feel more kick drum and a little bit more bottom end like in the reference mix. You can't change your mix that much, nor should you try to at this point because you've already mixed it. And you could, of course, go back in on your individual tracks, but this is the way I like to work because I like the balance of my mix on the individual faders. I just want to make sure the top end and bottom end are a little closer in that ballpark to another mix. So usually it's involved something like this, somewhat of a lift. Maybe it's a little bit of a peak. Maybe it's just a high shelf. Maybe I don't need any top end. And then sometimes a little bit of a boost at the bottom, find a little bit more weight where maybe the kick drum or bass root note is. A little bit of EQ on your mix bus can go a long way. Obviously, keep it minimum like we looked at early on in the mix bus half rule. Do a little bit of a mix reference at the end. It's worth the pain. Bring it in, do the dirty work, and your mixes will be better for it. Hope you stick around for our last couple of videos. They're good, people. We'll see you tomorrow.